What's up, cannabis community? I'm Brent Green, and this is your cannabis news. I mean, how's it going out there, y'all? You staying safe from the COVID-45? You keeping your hands clean and distanced from others? Before we get started though, today, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We're making independent black cannabis media over here, and we need your support. Alrighty, y'all. So, yeah. Today, folks, we're going to dig in on the subject of the month, the MORE Act. Yeah, man. The MORE Act, y'all. It is the big subject of the month. It is the subject that you all seem to be really stuck on. The MORE Act, which to me at this point is giving off the odor of more of the same old same. But let's get into what Omar Figueroa, who happens to be a cannabis lawyer, let's see what he has to say on the subject. Okay, so as you can see here, it says the MORE Act's controversial licensing provisions. Now, as many of you know, on Friday, December 4th, 2020, the United States House of Representatives passed H.R. 3884, known as the, in quotes, Marijuana Opportunity Investment and Expungement Act of 2020, or MORE Act. This historic bill aimed to decriminalize and deschedule cannabis to provide for reinvestment in persons adversely impacted by the war on drugs, to provide for expungement of federal cannabis offenses and for other purposes, end quotes. It is these other purposes that are the concern here. Okay, the House Committee on Rules has a helpful website with links to the video of the vote as well as the text. Several versions of the text are presented. Perhaps the most illuminating is a comparative print of the text, which can be used to compare the former version of H.R. 3884 as reported by the Committee on the Judiciary with the amended version printed by the Rules Committee. The former version did not contain any provisions for federal licenses. The amended version contains licensing provisions which are controversial precisely because, contrary to the stated purpose of the MORE Act, they exclude persons adversely impacted by the war on drugs. I just want to make sure that y'all heard that there, because I'm gonna go through a lot of this article with you all. Considering this is a lawyer, a cannabis lawyer here in California. So yeah, but just like it always happens, y'all, just like I always say, what happens, it seems one way, the old switch of hand, the old switcheroo is coming on y'all here. But let's get back into it here. Okay. So while the MORE Act is divided into several sections, which as Section 3, which would retroactively decriminalize and deschedule cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act, and Section 10, which pertains to the resentencing and expungement of convictions for federal cannabis offenses. Section 5 is of concern here. While the previous version of Section 5 provided for the creation of opportunity, trust fund, and imposition of tax on cannabis products, the amended version increases the federal excise tax from 5% to 8% over a period of 5 years, adds a $1,000 federal occupational tax on any person engaged in business as a producer or an export warehouse proprietor, and requires a federal permit and bond in such form, amount, and manner as the Secretary shall by regulation prescribe. The Secretary referred to is the Secretary of the Treasury. In practical terms, the amended MORE Act would give tremendous power to former UC Berkeley professor Janet Yellen, selected to be the Secretary of the Treasury by the President-elect Joe Biden. Y'all see what's happening here? It's all adding up. It's starting to stack up again. Y'all see it happening again with this presidency too. Yeah, y'all, they eager to get this all rolling, so they can get they pockets lined with that cannabis money. You feel me? But let's go back into this. Okay, so let's see here. Where was I? Oh, given that the previous version of Section 5 of the MORE Act treated cannabis products as tobacco products, former 9/5/12, this new federal regulatory regime appears similar to the federal regulatory regime for tobacco products, which is overseen by two bureaus within the Department of the Treasury. Okay, now Section 5 contains controversial provisions that result in discrimination against victims of cannabis prohibition. For example, Section 5922, which pertains to applications for a federal cannabis permit, states that an application may be rejected and a permit denied if the Secretary of the Treasury finds that the legal person, including in the case of a corporation, any officer, director, or principal shareholder, is by reason of previous or current legal proceedings involving a federal violation of any other provision of federal or state criminal law relating to cannabis or cannabis products, not likely to maintain operations in compliance with this chapter. Y'all, you know what that pretty much equates to, right? That's the beginning of excluding the very people who were directly affected by the war on drugs here, y'all. But hey, you know, I digress. Anyway, so I have some notes I took here on this matter. So now over this past week, y'all, I've read post after post on how historic this act is, and yet without much mention in regards to how this is just another bill benefiting whites in the market. This is an example of how when stoners are presented with a bill titled legalization and will vote for it just because of that, i.e. Prop and Amendment 64, it begs to ask, are my fellow stoners that desperate and racist for change that they take anything? I mean, really, y'all, really. So in regards to this vote being a historic vote, none of this will be historic until those who are incarcerated for it are released in mass, along with we as a nation are able to compete on a global scale in cannabis. All right, y'all. So I just want to point that out to y'all when y'all are out here saying, like I've seen hella posts from y'all saying that this was a historic vote. Yes, it was a historic vote. Only on the surface, okay? It means yet again to exclude black and brown people who have bore the brunt of the war on drugs, okay? So our next story, y'all. Our next story comes courtesy of, in quotes, marijuana moment. And as y'all can see here from the headline, it says the majority of Republican voters support House passed, in quotes, marijuana. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, dang, snap. Just give me a second. Here it is right here. This is it right here. Okay, back on track. House approves in quotes, marijuana research bill days after voting to federally legalize cannabis. Yeah, y'all. Okay, so just days after voting to federally legalize cannabis, the U.S. House of Representatives approved a separate bill meant to promote research into the plant, in part by allowing scientists to access cannabis from state legal dispensaries. So in a voice vote, the chamber passed the bipartisan medical, in quotes, marijuana research act, which previously advanced out of the House Energy and Commerce Committee in September. The bill, which has been slightly revised in the months since, was considered under a procedure known as suspension of the rules, meaning that no further amendments were allowed on the floor, and a 2/3 majority was required to pass. The unlikely duo of pro-legalization rep Earl Blumingmauer, excuse me if I'm butchering that name, and prohibitionist rep Andy Harris are the lead sponsors of the legislation. And I quote here Mr. Blumenauer, the cannabis laws in this country are broken, especially those that deal with research, Blumenauer said on the House floor prior to the vote. It's a narrow bill that fixes one of many broken cannabis laws, and I want to hasten to add that this in no way negates the need to move forward with other areas of legalization. But this is sort of a foundational question. No matter where you are, there's no reason the federal government should impede this critical research. Harris, for his part, pointed out that he and Blumenauer probably disagree more vigorously with one another about, in quotes, marijuana legalization than any other members of Congress, but, in quotes, we agree 100% that we need to do this research, he said. Now, unfortunately, because of the public policy we've had in place with, in quotes, marijuana and its scheduling, research simply couldn't be done, Harris, who is a medical doctor, said. You can't do it under the current scheduling. This is on us. It shouldn't have taken so long to get to this point. Oh my God. And it kind of brings me to a point. It shouldn't have taken us so long for any of this to happen, y'all. For any of this, for us to get to any of this. It did, the only reason why we're here, and I know I'm repeating the same thing that you already know. The only reason why they're saying legalization now is because they're broke. That's the only reason why they're saying this. Because all these states are broke because of Corona 45. The Corona 45 got them. Got them. Anyways, y'all, let me get back to this article. So, let's see. It's not clear whether the GOP-controlled Senate will take up the measure with the limited time it has left before the end of the current Congress. But if it were to go to the floor, it stands to reason that it would similarly enjoy bipartisan support. As the proposal was originally drafted, it would have made it so researchers could access, in quotes, marijuana from additional federally approved private manufacturers. But in September, an amendment in the nature of a substitute was approved in committee, includes a component expanding scientists' access to cannabis products from legal dispensaries. That's pretty cool, y'all. That's kind of cool. For half a century, researchers have only been able to study, in quotes, marijuana grown at a single federally approved facility at the University of Mississippi, but they have complained that it is difficult to obtain the product and that it is low quality. Indeed, one study showed that the government cannabis is more similar to hemp than to the, in quotes, marijuana that consumers actually use in the real world. Unfortunately, that federally produced, in quotes, marijuana is chemically distinct from that what is commercially available from state legal dispensaries, such as in my home state of Oregon, Rep. Greg Walden. Was a Republican from Oregon. The ranking member on the Energy and Commerce Committee said, what does that mean? Well, it means that we have a little to no data on the actual health impacts of products in states that have legalized cannabis for medical or recreational use. We need research that reflects the reality of what's on the market. Oh, shucky, y'all. Oh, shucky, science is catching up. Science is catching up to y'all. Catching up to the game. Science is catching up to the game, y'all. Okay, so again, y'all, hooray, hoorah, and all that stuff, and hallelujah, and gratitude, or perhaps not. For me, these are even louder. These are signals of an even louder, a very unpopular fact, which is after almost 80 years of prohibition and many lives ruined, the government is aiming to own cannabis. I said some big scary thing. Yeah. While many of us have done the grunt work. Okay, y'all. Now, I know this is a hard conversation for us to have. I understand. This is a hard conversation for us in the cannabis community to have. And today may not be the day for me to get deep into it. But like the prior article, these subjects are soon to be tackled, or we, the cannabis community, are to be tackled. And unlike with Prop 64, it won't just be a singular state. Okay. Now, we already know Chad, Brad, and Becky are aiming to own cannabis and get rich off of cannabis from a national level. Okay, y'all? And they want to lock you out. Yeah, you who don't look like Chad, Brad, and Becky. Anyways. Yeah, folks, that's it for today. We'll see you all next Wednesday for Cannabis News, of course, at 4:55 p.m. Pacific. But of course, we'll be back here on Friday with Freeform Friday with the green scene proper. Now, we decided on Freeform Friday as a creative outlet, as hard news, as you know, can be hard, and I like to be silly. Okay, I like to be silly. Also, be sure to donate to our Cash App at the address below, at the address right there that you see in the center between the two logos there. Okay, because wrong one. Because as you know, it is now more important than ever to lift up Black voices. And it's even doubly important in the cannabis space. So until next time, y'all, I'm Brent Green, and this has been your Cannabis News Prime Live.
Stay tuned.